Hello everyone and welcome back to C-Suite Lounge. I'm your host Panache and I'm honored to be joined by Mr. Khalym Johnson here today. A seasoned banking professional with experience in higher education, sales and customer experience. Originally from Australia, Khalym moved to the United States as a teenager and recently stepped into his new role as bank manager, assistant vice president here at Regions Bank. Khalym, it's so great to have you with us. How's your day been so far?
It's been wonderful. Thank you for having me today. I'm looking forward to a wonderful conversation.
Yes, looking forward to it. Let's jump right in.
Yeah.
So my first question to you is, how has your journey looked like up to this point, and how has that shaped your philosophy around financial inclusion and community engagement?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So I'll kind of just preface it by starting with kind of where I began in banking, and we'll kind of segue into what led me to where I am today.
Yes.
So I started in banking in Clarksville, Tennessee at a credit union in 2017. So it's been 8 years. When I first started in banking, I had no clue what I was doing. I just graduated from undergrad, but I wanted to put myself out there and kind of just learn a different skill set. And so through that time, I got heavily involved with the DEI network that was a part of our credit union. And so that put me out in the community. And so eventually I found my way to Regions Bank. And with Regions Bank, Regions, they do a lot with the community. And so that continued to push my desire to be involved in the community. And so today, what I do a lot of is financial literacy with different organizations in the area, because financial education is important. The only way that we can grow our communities is by teaching and educating and supporting one another. So that's what led me to where I am now.
Great, and I'm glad our community can benefit from that today. Can you share a moment or initiative that made you realize the deeper role that Region Bank plays in the local community as, you know, a priority to the bank?
Yeah, so something that a lot of people don't know about banks is that we are legally obligated to be involved in the community. So many years ago, there was something called the Community Reinvestment Act. And so that applies to every single bank, whether it's Regions, whether it's Bank of America, doesn't matter what the branding is, it's required. It was a way for the banks to give back to the communities that they were taking from. This idea came from because of fees. The community they were being charged heavily in fees, and so the community needed something, and so the government stepped in and said, hey banks, you need to get back out there and involve and reinvest into the communities that you're taking from. And so you'll see a lot of banks actively involved in various events around the city, wherever you live, really honestly. And so Regions Bank is no different. So you'll see a lot of us out there educating and involved with different events in the area.
Okay, that's great to know. In your experience at Regions, how have you seen women's financial behaviors evolve over the years, especially in underserved or emerging communities?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Something that I've seen across not just Regions, but other institutions that I've worked for. A big thing that I've learned is a lot of women are trying to get involved with understanding their finances. And I really think, that really personally, what that looks like for women in general is it's allowing them to grow financially. Something that I've seen a lot more, our saving habits are quite a bit different for women versus men. Again, from my personal standpoint, women save better generally once they have the tools behind them that actually educates them on how to save properly. And so that's something over time that I've seen emerge and grow, especially more so with Black women. I've worked in communities with Regions Bank, with the credit union I worked for, and other financial institutions that I've worked for, that you'll see differences based on the community. Some communities are a lot more close-knit. Some communities are more about educating. One community that I've seen that grow a lot are Black women and their savings.
Are there any common financial challenges or knowledge gaps that you've noticed, and how has your team responded to that?
The biggest knowledge gap that I've seen is around credit. But credit varies based on a lot of factors. One, the neighborhood that you're supporting. Some neighborhoods, credit's not a problem. One neighborhood that I've been a part of recently is a neighborhood here in Nashville, the Village. Most of the west end of Nashville is a little bit more wealthy. They're more financially savvy. But you have other neighborhoods in Nashville that don't have that same opportunity. And so one thing that I've seen really a big consistent thing is going to be credit. Another really big challenge that I've seen in a lot of our neighborhoods are savings. A lot of people don't know how to save or just are unable to save. And so that's where we can step in and educate on how those things work and how to budget for savings as well.
Okay, and I'm sure you have some financial tools here at Regions to help with those kind of concerns as well. And I'm wondering what trends you're seeing in terms of women interacting with those financial tools to help them with those challenges, and how does that play into, you know, women as a new emerging market and scaling that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of institutions have their own budgeting tools that you'll see in their online banking. I think that's a little bit more unique to Regions is their Green Print, which is a financial plan they offer everybody. And so that's something that I've seen a lot of people take advantage of, whether they're women or men, doesn't make a difference. That's a plan that any banker at Regions can actually set up. And so what I've seen from my personal experience, I've seen with my interactions with Green Print, when I submit one, generally speaking, I have more positive feedback from women.
Okay, great. If you're enjoying this podcast, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to C-Suite Lounge. Now to get more into the data-driven matrix, what matrix do you look at when evaluating the success of your community outreach programs, and even like on a personal level, your customers as they come into the bank and see them evolve over time? What are those metrics that you're tracking and evaluating to really look into how that's improving?
So one thing that I've personally done studies on are census tracts and the demographics in those census tracts and what that looks like. And so some neighborhoods, of course, you'll see an upward trend with income, you'll see changes with the age demographic. And so that plays a huge role in what banks and credit unions in general will expect for those neighborhoods. So a great example is an emerging neighborhood within Nashville is going to be Old Hickory area, and as well as our like Hickory Hollow Mall area. Those neighborhoods are changing very quickly, and so the expectations that banks, credit unions, it doesn't matter where you work, your expectation is to grow. You're growing your market, you're getting involved. You are finding opportunities to get more lending. You're finding more opportunities to open an account. You're finding more, more opportunities to get budgeting plans set up as well through that Regions Green Print that I mentioned. And so a lot of that is actually driven by the U.S. Census, their data that they provide us, and those census tract data that we can pull as well. And that's something that anybody can pull. So I personally love to do that because it gives me the opportunity to understand a neighborhood before I enter it as a banking professional.
Does that translate to, if I want to move to a certain neighborhood, also looking at those metrics would be useful?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it is it's entirely data driven, so it doesn't really convey any sort of specific message. But if you really read the data, you can kind of understand a neighborhood before entering it. So it will show like crime data, it will show education rates, growth opportunities, it will show the average age as well. So all those things, are seen on the data that the census will share.
And that's just on uscensus.com or something?
uscensus.gov. That's it.
Perfect. Are there specific financial products or services that have particularly resonated with women in the community? I know you spoke about the Green Print. Anything else that you would speak to, or how you see that evolving as, with AI and the role that AI plays with that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I know one thing which is more traditional outside of AI are HELOCs, home equity line of credits. That's a huge product. It's one of the best products that any financial institution can offer. using an asset that people don't traditionally think about using, which is the equity in your home, is massive.
Do you mind elaborating a bit more on that, actually?
Yeah, absolutely. So HELOC, is that what you're asking? Like what the HELOC is and what that looks like?
Yes.
Yeah. So home equity line of credit, basically think about it like this. I have a home, I have a mortgage, and let's say my home is worth $500,000, but I only owe $100,000. That difference, that $400,000, is the equity that I have in my home. You can use that as an asset for your own benefit. And so a lot of times people will use a loan against that equity to do home repairs, to travel, to pay for a wedding. I've seen people invest money with that. I had a couple that I worked with several years back. They got a very large HELOC and invested half of it. So that way they had a retirement plan set up for when they retired. So there's so many reasons why HELOC can be used. And so one thing that I've seen over the years that I've been in banking is how important that product is and how many people are starting to actually become aware of what the product is and how many are actually doing it. And so with that said, I've seen all races and demographics come in to get that. One community that I definitely think could benefit really truly from that are those that are wanting to buy a home. People that are buying a home traditionally don't know that a HELOC exists. So they don't know what's available to them once they get the home. It's not just buying the home that's the asset, it's the equity that you can gain from that that's the asset as well.
Yeah, I think I've heard more of HELOCs actually towards getting more real estate, but I didn't know that you can do that for your retirement savings and have that invested, because we all know the sooner you start compounding, the better it is for you. So
absolutely,
using that as an asset is very important.
Yeah.
Wow, learned something great. Do you think there's a reflection of shift in priorities or education when you look at just how much people know about these certain tools that are available to them when it comes to things like HELOCs?
Yeah. There definitely has been a shift in banking across the board. I remember when I first started the shift, the focus was growing your market, growing your neighborhood, meaning open accounts, right? And that was it. We wanted to grow. Now the growth is already happening, so we're not really worried about the growth anymore in banking. People are walking in the door to us. The biggest thing now is educating on what tools are available. One thing that came up was COVID. Regions Greenprint became very important during COVID because people, of course, with the separation of like people from the rest of the world, honestly, during lockdowns, a lot of times people kind of lost track of what they were doing. So savings did grow at one point, and now they've been depleted. People max out their credit cards because they were traveling more. So a lot of the Greenprint allows people to actually understand what their profile looks like and how the bank can help them. And so that's a really big thing. So the shift now is more focusing on understanding credit and saving, but also capitalizing on the things that you have, i.e. a HELOC.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know you spoke about how before there was a focus on growth, but now people are coming in more by themselves. So for regions, what have you seen as an advantage to keeping your branches open versus like moving online? There are some banks that are no branch at all. So what have you seen like that advantage and what has influenced that decision to keep the branches open?
That's a good question, and this is coming from personal experience at a few institutions. Really, honestly, maintaining the in-person is a necessity. A lot of people during COVID, and this is again just from what I've seen, they missed that human element. They missed the element of, hey, I'm going to come into my bank to do business, even though a lot of these people didn't already. And so people will come to us now that didn't traditionally come to us before COVID. They didn't really need us, and they still don't, but they like that human element. And so it also makes things more personalized. Yeah. And so a lot of places now are moving away from just making it, you can do it on your own. We still want you to do it on your own, but we want to empower you to do it on your own, but we also want to build a relationship. It's not just about, you come in and show you your resources. We want to have a relationship with you because your finance is important and it requires someone to help you through that.
Yes. So in terms of personalization and independence, are there any initiatives that you're taking in terms of AI to promote that? Because education can really benefit from using AI, and also the personalization of those financial tools.
Yeah, absolutely. So AI is really a big thing that is utilized in a lot of banks for like automated systems, right?
Yeah.
It can mitigate waits. So you may call in and say, hey, I need to check my balance. You have the automated system. A lot of that's actually pushed by AI at this time. When it comes to most of the other aspects of banking, it's not really necessary. Most aspects of banking are all automated, but it's not AI pushed. But with AI coming up, and it's a huge thing. I mean, really, in finance in general, it's making the bank become more creative with how they handle things, and that's every bank. That's every bank. The credit union that I worked for, they also were pushing, more creative solutions on how to handle things because AI is a big thing. And so, how do we handle that? That still allows people to understand that we're here for them.
Yes.
But also, how do we compete with AI, and how do we compete with online banks that are AI driven? And so us just coming up with creative solutions to draw people in, but also personalize the experience, i.e. Regions Greenprint, make sure that this is catered to you and not here's a number, right? You're just like the rest.
Yeah, because then even the AI can notice some spending patterns and factor that into the print, the green print and everything, which is great. Yeah. Okay. And also, there's also the issue of privacy and all of the other things that come with AI. Even just driving the models themselves costs a lot of energy, which is something that institutions have to think about when they're always picking, different ways to implement that AI. So
you brought up a great point with that, actually, if you don't mind me inserting. AI has actually influenced what fraud looks like for us. And so we have a lot of fraud happening because of AI. And so because of privacy, it's hard for us to navigate that, because we weren't expecting AI to influence what fraud looks like. So of course, many institutions have put measures in place that prevent AI from interfering with our customers and our clients. However, it still is huge. It still is a big thing. And so we want to make sure that we're understanding what AI looks like for the fraudsters. The bad guys out there are using AI to their advantage, not just competitors.
Yeah. If you're enjoying this podcast, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to C-Suite Lounge. So what advice would you give to women looking to take more control over their finances, especially those just beginning the financial independence journey, and not just women, but everybody in general? Yes.
Definitely. I mean, even if I just focus on women, I think the biggest thing would be go into your bank and develop a relationship with a banker. A lot of times your banker knows exactly what path we need to take, but all it requires is a conversation and transparency. What I see more frequently are people are fearful to share their situation. It could be pride, it could be anything. But we want to know, where you're at so we can properly help you. And so that just requires honesty, transparency, and conversation. So your banker will ask questions to understand where you are. So that way they can find the right path for you. But it also, again, requires you saying, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm needing and where I want to go. And again, Regions Greenprint does a lot of that. But even outside of Regions Greenprint doing that, anybody can go into their bank to do this. I've had powerful conversations with people at other institutions, and it was amazing. We were able to find the perfect solution for them. It just requires you going in so that way you know what tools are available. People don't think about that, but our bankers are trained. They're very experienced, and they will know what's best, you know? So it's a matter of just going in and asking and just opening up that door and developing that relationship too. It's a two-way street.
Yes. And honestly, I can speak to that. Also have a banker I work with, send an email, he's always ready to answer. And even some things that you don't even think about, because it's a car loan that I have with them, and I'm like, at this point I want to sell my car for one reason or the other, and he's also like, you know, giving me resources towards that. When it's like, okay, I'm looking into real estate, also giving me resources towards that. So I definitely believe in developing that relationship, because it's a long-term relationship, and it really influences your life long term, you know, because finances is something that's with us forever. Like, you have to deal with that. Sometimes even after you're dead, you have to deal with your finances. Someone else has to deal with those finances. So I can speak to that. And I've had, you know, moments where I have now started looking line by line on my bank statements too, which is something that can be a little intimidating, but you know, that's how you understand yourself, and you can make those moves to grow in your finances. So for someone trying to improve financial literacy in their own home or community at large, what resources would you recommend, if any, that are offered by regions or, you know, any other resources?
Yeah. So absolutely. I mean, going into your bank. Going into your bank is the biggest thing. Go into your bank, ask questions. They can open up the door to those resources. A lot of banks also have resources on their websites, regions included. You go to their site, and then you can find like calculators, you can find information on how products work. You can even find through a lot of online banking portals as well. It says, hey, this is how you set up your budget, and it will create a budget for you, which is also AI powered. Kind of going back to that.
Interesting, that's cool. So from your position, and maybe from also the position of what you see in the community that you interact with, look like at large, what's one small but impactful financial habit you've seen transform someone's life, or, you know,
absolutely. Savings. You know, savings, and really honestly, developing that habit, even if it's small, really makes a huge difference. I've helped people over the years they started contributing $20 a pay period to their savings, and they continued that habit for many years, and as they continued to grow professionally, they increased that number. As their situation started changing in general, they started increasing even more. And so to see some of these people go from, I got $100 in savings, to now they're saved for retirement basically, is massive. It can really change a situation for a lot of people. So savings is a big thing, but also another big one that I've helped with is, again, going back to credit. I remember a guy who's about 40. He didn't have any credit because he filed for bankruptcy. And so we got him in a secured credit card, and then that's just opened up his door. And I want to say it was about 5 years afterwards, he was able to buy his first home. So just to kind of see that growth there. So credit's a small thing. Of course, savings is another small thing that can snowball into much bigger and better things.
Someone said the difference between like your savings and how you're building wealth, somewhere along those lines, is like your ego. So just understanding, you know, this is where I really need to be right now, and this is where I am right now, this is where I want to be. Let me forego certain things, let me understand, you know, what my lifestyle is and how I can still be satisfied, but within a budget that, you know, is not straining you. You don't feel like you're missing out on much, but you know, you're still in a comfortable space. So it's important to put away something for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So lastly, is tax season. What should we be doing with our refunds?
Saving. Saving. I think saving for sure, but you know, another big thing that a lot of people do is pay off debts that they can. I don't recommend using your entire tax refund for paying off debt, but you know, definitely, you know, save, put some of that away. It's okay to treat yourself too. So I think another habit that a lot of people think of is, I need to commit all into this one thing and forget the rest. You got to take care of yourself. And so it's hard to get into that good habit if you're not treating yourself sometimes
Yeah.
and rewarding yourself. So if you can afford to go on a quick vacation, go to the beach for a little bit while saving, why not do that? So
Yeah, that's true. Keep you motivated.
Yeah.
Okay, I lied. Not the last question. This is the last question. What book have you recently read, or would you recommend for our listeners today?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So the most recent read was Born or Crime by Trevor Noah.
Oh,
I love that book. I love Trevor Noah in general.
I see you guys have a bit of similarities.
Really?
A little bit.
No, I love Trevor Noah. I think he's hilarious. But that book was wonderful. It kind of taught me a lot about apartheid, what it looked like on the ground. But also, I love the perspective that he came from, the angle, because it really was informative, but fun in a weird way, which I know that's how he positions it, but it wasn't a fun thing. It was terrifying, traumatizing, but I love that book, and I would highly recommend it to anyone I know.
Okay, I'll definitely get on to that. Thank you so much again for having us here. I learned so much, and I'm sure our viewers will have learned a lot as well, and we'll look forward to coming back to Regions and opening our accounts.
We would love to have you to get those accounts set up. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate you.
Yes.
Thank you.